And it looks
Right.
looks live
So
on this end.
technically, we are broadcasting on the interweb. The NSA can see us. They can see us discussing badges. Not their type of badges, but badges nonetheless.
Yeah, completely different kind of badges. So I guess like I'll just kind of start off by saying, hi, I'm JR Dingwall. I'm an educational developer from Edmonton, Alberta, and I'm here today with AK, who has identified himself as a badge collector. But what kind of initiated this discussion for me was looking at the presence of badges in a learning management system. So not badges for like the open badges from Mozilla, and not badges as like an actual credentialing system, like a certificate, diploma, or other credential, but ways that badges would be used to engage learners in either web enhanced or online or blended courses. So one day I'm scrolling through Feedly, and I have AK's blog on my list of to reads. And hey, there we go.
Hey.
Hey. So I read a blog post that you had written about badges, and that you use them in one of your classes, but not every instructor in that program or even teaching the same course would use the badges. So that just got me kind of interested in the aspect of, using a badge to engage learners at a module level or a course level or a program level. Because most of what I've seen with, say, badges in like Moodle or Blackboard or any of the LMSs is like, you completed a quiz, here's a badge. But to me, like it should be something kind of bigger than just like collecting them. Like, what are ways that any of you have either used badges yourself, or have seen your colleagues using badges, or seen other people using badges that is actually a way to engage learners? So that's kind of like the starting place. Hi to Lisa and Alan.
Howdy.
Hi.
We actually just begun, so do you want to do a quick intro of who you are and what's your stake in badges?
No. Lisa goes first.
Okay. Hi, I'm Lisa Hammersheim from just outside of Chicago. I actually do not professionally use badges in any way, but I do enjoy making fictitious badges and sending them to friends for things that I think are of merit and ways they bring much value to my own personal life. So I guess I badge actually quite a bit, but it's much more on the Lisa scale of things. But I'm open because I'm a creative arts educator, so always looking for new stuff.
That was brilliant. I love it. Fictitious badges. Alan Levine from Strawberry, Arizona. I've probably been a bit of a badge mocker, because it seems, but I have a lot of ignorance that the things that we badge are things that are easy to badge, and end up not being too meaningful. So I've been mouthing off a little bit of my blog about badges, and trying to engage people. And actually, I have come across, made some contacts with people who are doing some really interesting things with them. So I don't know enough to really talk about them. But it seems it's not about the badges, but it's about the systems and implementations that they're built into. And one of the better examples, and I'm supposed to get a tour next week, was from someone who told me about the Houston, one of the Houston school districts, I think the Independent School District, and they got some sort of thing where teachers who are going through PD don't just get badged for like showing up to a session, or somewhere I came across someone got a badge for writing a blog post, and that was like, to me, that was like a ridiculous thing to badge. You might as well badge me for breathing. But in this Houston school system, from what I could see, is that there was a really nice structure built around it. So teachers were, doing some workshop stuff, but they're also doing projects, and part of the whole badge system was them, posting somewhere online like things they were doing to change their curriculum or their plans, and then there were things like systems where other people would vouch for them. So it seemed like an implementation plan that has nothing to do with the technology behind it.
So just on my background, I am a badge collector. Have been the recipient of some of Lisa's badges.
Where do you display them?
For Lisa's badges, I post them on my blog.
Awesome.
But for
I
any
hope
other...
You deeply treasure them and post them on your blog, you should say.
Deeply treasured. I should print them out, actually, on heavy stock paper and put them on my corkboard in the office. But I started with badges a couple of years ago, and my initial implementation for my class was looking at discrete skills in the classes, so breaking down that monolithic, here's what we do in this course. Let's say we design online courses. Okay, so you can get a badge if you've designed a really well online course that passes some rubric like QM, but are there smaller parts, components that you know how to do even if you haven't earned that big giant badge of knowing how to create a really good online course? And it was really tacked on for that first class. The second class, for an intro to instructional design, I did it from scratch. I redesigned the course from scratch to include badges, but I still have trouble including that evidence. The evidence is kind of hard to include because some of it is course projects for students that are perfectly fine in an in-progress mode of being, but you don't necessarily want to show this to an employer or somebody who's going to hire you for work because what they're expecting is much, much higher.
Hmm.
So, like kind of Alan and Lisa logged in as I was giving the background here, is that most of the time when I'm seeing badges, it is like you've completed quiz 1 and now you have this like Math 101 1.0 badge or something like that. Some of the other things that I've seen are I think what you described in your first go around, AK, where it was like a series of smaller badges that do contribute to a larger one. I think one of the hurdles that that is in my path for thinking about badges in general too is, are there certain disciplines that are more readily like poised to implement badges versus other disciplines? So like if I'm math, then maybe it is just those discrete skills and it is just at that quiz level, which doesn't seem very appealing. Like as a learner, like I don't know that I would necessarily be completing that quiz to get the badge because I'm already getting grades for it. So it's like what value is added, but what are the things that I could do that a badge would actually engage me or motivate me versus like what you described with your design course, where it's like I have actually built an online course that passed quality assurance. So those are like two completely different set of tasks even.
There's I mean, I hear both sides, and I can sort of intuitively see them, that there are things that incentivize people about badges. It works in gaming environments and other places. At the same time, I've come across these articles, probably research-ish, which say that those incentives are they don't last, so they're like short-term incentives, and so people end up getting focused on, getting the points or getting the top of the leaderboard, instead of what we're hoping for is probably something a little bit more higher level. So, I'm stuck in that same place. Is like I can see some motivational aspect of it, but to me, anything that feels like a game, I lose interest in it if the only purpose is to collect a bunch of shiny things. That's just me.
And it does happen over a period of time. I think that's the effect of the hedonic treadmill. You need more and more of whatever it is that makes you feel good in order to feel the effect later on. And I don't know how many of you play games, but when I started playing Xbox, I I was all about the badges. I wanted to play the game for the story, but then earn as many badges as possible. And then after about 15 games in, I'm like, how many flags do I need to collect to get this badge? And I'm done with the story component. Forget it. I'll just go play another game so I can get another story and get immersed in that.
So it's like, what is the meaning that gets attached to these badges instead of just the chase of them?
Yeah, and I mean, could you almost use the badge as like kind of the gateway into, whatever the larger task is, and then, could students or could people, I guess, become interested that way? Like, I know I just recently got a running app for my phone, and for the first week, it was like every time I ran, it would like give me this like, yay, you won a digital badge. And the first time it happened, I was like, oh, this is so exciting. And the second time, I was like, wow. And now it like tells me I won a badge, and I'm like, I don't care. Like, I didn't just run, 3.5 miles to get a badge. I ran because I needed to do it. But yeah, so I mean, it's a weird thing because it's such a great like short-term buzz of like, oh, I did something and someone rewarded me in a way that kind of doesn't matter. But but I mean, if it can lead into something bigger, or yeah, what's the motivation? But
I'm gonna I'll put this in the chat. I saw this video last night. Like, I don't even know why I watched it. I think something that Brett Victor tweeted. And I don't know if I can really encapsulate it, but he's really talking about the everything that's done with metrics, and he talks a lot about how YouTube recommends videos for you, is really geared towards things that measure behaviors, because they're easy to measure, they're easy to quantify, because YouTube wants you to stay on and watch they want you to spend a lot of time watching YouTube videos. He was like, why do they keep recommending comedy videos for me? When I come on, and because I want to learn how to play a musical instrument. So, and then he talks about like what we really want to get at are some of the reasons and motivations that people are in these spaces. It kind of lost me two-thirds of the way in when he was trying to explain how to do this kind of reason-based metrics, but the first part was really fascinating in terms of the way he pitched looking at behaviors, which are, how many times you log in, or how many times, you respond in a discussion forum, against the reasons for you engaging in some activity, which is harder to do, but he was suggesting not impossible. It was really, really quite mind-blowing.
It is indeed hard to do. I've been thinking about this gaming aspect of classes because I've been trying to some extent, emulate and tap into the video game badges. And if you play a game, you know what some of the badges are. So you know the behaviors that you need to demonstrate in order to earn that badge. But there are a lot of badges that are hidden. So there's an element of exploration. So I'm trying to figure out, okay, in a traditional class, be it face-to-face or online, how can I create levels of exploration that are not instructor-led? Because when you have a gamer, they know what the game environment looks like. They know that there's a world map and that they can go out and explore things, and some of those things might give them some reward. But in the class, where you've got a syllabus and 13 weeks of planned stuff to do, how do you encourage that exploration?
Is that I'm kind of thinking back on what I've seen in some K-12 settings where they start to try to do that 20% Google time idea, and that if you have that kind of time blocked off, then that has the exploratory piece. But then like the badges that are enabled or that you've designed ahead of time are like maybe on trajectories that you would hope they would go because it's related to whatever course or series of courses, interdisciplinary things that you're looking at. That's just kind of off the top of my head even. Sorry, I dropped out there. My network kicked me off for a little bit.
I'm wondering, AK, in your game experience, I mean, is some of that difference in a game where you're just where it's you versus you versus the game, versus like environments like World of Warcraft where your badges are public, so there's some there's some sort of status building that you're doing, so those seem to be kind of different motivations too.
Right, and I don't know if it's because I've spent more time than my friends playing games, or I just don't have that many friends on my Xbox account, but I'm constantly at the top of the list just because I probably play more and collect more badges than they do. But it's always like one of those kicks to see, oh, hey, look, my friend Joe just passed me on my overall score. Maybe I should go back and play this game a little more, explore some of the areas that I just said, forget about it. I finished the main story. I'm not going to do it. And that is definitely something that that is motivating. Of course, there are games without badges, and I like to play them, but I don't play them as often.
It seems like you really need to be very aware of the motivation of the learners that you're working with, because like I can totally see, AK, that you're like the badge master, and like that doesn't shock me at all. Whereas I'm got much more of like, if I like something, I'll do it kind of in excess, but if I only mildly like something, then like all the badges in the world aren't going to get me to do anything, because I'm like, nah, that just has no value for me right now. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a tension of how can you design something, some system or some space or whatever, to meet learners who you may or may not have some sort of established relationship with. So yeah, I mean, you can, like, right now I know which of my students would probably love if I gave them badges, and which of them would still not turn in any work if there were badges or not. But yeah, I mean, it's the temperament piece of what would drive and not.
It's interesting. At the end of each semester, when I run these badge experiments, I also have like a final survey just to gauge student attitudes. And there are some students like, yes, give me more badges. And some like, yeah, okay, if they're there, I might do it. If they're not there, I don't care. And then some of them are like, I didn't even bother participating. I knew they were there. I knew they were opt-in. I just didn't care.
I think part of that, like, part of the motivation thing is really like grades is already is something that's in place that is motivating and carries on beyond the course and for like the rest of my program and onto my transcript and all of these other things. But the badge, like if I have it in a course, it really just stops there, and it's just a JPEG. And so what other purposes or pieces would there be for me outside of it? I know with some of the open badge stuff, like I think there's usually a description of what project you did or a link to the project that you did, so you can actually say, if you click on this thing that to save space, like if you're thinking like visual CV, so you can get it down onto one page, then it's like, yeah, check out using it as like an extension of your portfolio in some sort of way. But again, it's not super valuable, more so than other ways of doing that same sort of thing.
To some extent, this reminds me a little bit of the portfolio discussion that I've had recently with colleagues, and the difference between a professional portfolio where you're showing off like really polished pieces of your work to potential employers, and people in that industry who work with portfolios and look at that as the currency of the realm, and then learner portfolios where it's more about the process of learning, and maybe you don't want to show that to employers. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, depends. But I was thinking, myself as an employer, it's not common for instructional designers to submit a portfolio of their work, and if I were hiring an instructional designer and somebody submitted a portfolio and nobody else did, I might look at it, but I wouldn't spend a ton of time looking at it, because that's not is something that I see as a, let's say, currency of the realm in hiring an instructional designer. Um,
Really?
I'm wondering if it's the same thing with badges.
Really? You don't want to see examples of their work in the world?
If they submit something, I'll look at it, but if they submitted like a really extensive portfolio and nobody else did, I would say, okay, maybe this person has an edge, but if I had 50 portfolios to look at, I don't know.
Hmm. I'm glad I don't hire anymore.
And that's assuming that, you know, that person with the portfolio made it through the automated HR system that's just like words.
That kind of weeds out the portfolios. I mean, again, this is totally generalistic. To me, like a badge is given to you by someone, so you receive a badge, and yeah, there's probably elements, but I don't see that as being the full picture. So, I mean, I also want to see people assert themselves with a portfolio or a public or something where they say, look, this is what I can do in the world, and this is what I have done, and these are the people I've worked with. And so I think it's a mixture of sort of portfolio and badging, not one or the other.
So would a professional, what I'm hearing you say, I think, is a professional interview, not the standard type where the one that I'm thinking for professional jobs tends to be more like a panel of interviewers, one interviewee asking about their experience, but more like how you might be hiring a faculty member, for example, where the person is actually presenting. It's not really an interview kind of in the cop sense, but an interview more like a presentation of here are my skills and here is some demonstration of them, and then we can have a back and forth Q&A.
Yeah, but I mean, I just think in general, I mean, outside of just the job application route, which again, you're pushed towards this final, like, you know, it's your best stuff. Just in how, you know, you regularly go about showing the world the stuff you do or you're interested in. You know, and the premise of badges is that it can recognize the stuff that already, you know, formal credential systems don't. And so I definitely buy into that. But no one's really like found that anybody is looking at that in some serious way yet. And again, it's easy to get sort of focused on the job hiring bit, but you know, if I meet AK and I want to know about his work, you know, I'm looking to see if he has a blog, you know. So you know, when I come across people on Twitter and it goes to a LinkedIn profile, I'm like, oh, okay. I sort of can see some of their presence. But yeah, really, I like to see where people, like my students when I teach, I want to know how they solve problems and what they struggle with, which I don't think any of that gets encompassed in a badge, which is some sort of affirmation of some discrete level of achievement.
That reminds me a little bit of predictive analytics in a sense, because, I don't know, in theory, if somebody has a certain collection of badges and those are all tied to core skills, competencies, knowledge, whatever, then some computing system should be able to extrapolate what I'm good at within a reasonable, you know, margin of error. But I think that's where analytics might come in, but it's such a young field that I would not trust a computer to tell me what I'm good at based on the badges that I've earned.
And I'm not sure, it's so often applied to computers, you know, computer science as coding things. And so I know in learning how to program, you know, I took some amount of classes and there's important things to learn, like, you know, logic and arrays and there's all stuff that are badgeable. But when I think about, like, if I just assembled all that stuff, I don't think that's what makes me, you know, qualified as a programmer. It's like that's the foundation to be able to do stuff. But I think I could go through and get all these badges for certain, like, if I haven't learned how to do Ruby yet, so I could go through someone's course because I know how to do courses, and I could get to the end, and I could have all these little things that say, yeah, I've done this and this and this, but I don't know if that really says that I can really put all that together and apply it to solve a larger problem. And maybe I'm just wrong because I'm looking at it simply. But just accumulating a lot of things, I don't necessarily adds up to something bigger.
Well, I'll give you a perfect example. My bachelor's is in computer science, so if you look at my transcript, you'll see that I have taken Intro to Java, Intro to C, Intermediate Java, C, x86 assembly language, and a whole bunch of other things.
You know way more than me.
So I've passed all those classes, and I definitely find it interesting. But if somebody put a gun to my head and said, "Here, code your way out of this problem," like, okay,
Yeah.
look over there, and I'll start running the opposite direction because I just would not be able at this point to program something in
Right.
that. Could I do it with enough practice? Sure, but just because I have a certain number of classes under my belt doesn't mean that I'm able to do this. And I think badges are about the same thing.
Well, yeah.
I can definitely tail end onto that because, like, when I first found out about Code Academy, I was like, oh, this is great. I can refresh all my HTML, or like I can learn CSS, and they kind of badge you along the way. But anytime that I end up doing stuff now, I'm still just like Googling. It's like, wait, what's the exact thing for this again? Oh, right. And it's, going through. So it's not, I did it at one time and I got their badge for it, and it says JR can do this. But it's like, well, okay, JR knows about it and knows how to figure it out again, but can't do it without, some kind of extension of himself.
But I might say that going through that experience gives you the ability to do that. I need to look it up and figure things out at the same time. So I wouldn't dismiss that as invaluable, but I wouldn't say going through I wouldn't hire someone just because they completed Code Academy, no matter how many Code Academy things they did, unless they could show me something, what they produced with that stuff. So, all that stuff is geared towards you're getting rewarded for going through some curriculum. And even I thought, like, in our traditional educational system, you have all these micro things that you do in a class. So you do assignments, you do a presentation. It accumulates to getting a credit for a grade for a single class, and a certain number of grades become a program or a certification. And so there is a way things build. So I don't want to just rule that out, that digital badges might necessarily be able to build into something that is more than just checking me off because I can write a for loop.
Lisa, in your field, where do you see badges?
I think kind of like what you guys are talking about regarding code. There's definitely, for those of you who are watching and don't know, I'm in the graphic design field and specifically graphic design education. And yeah, we don't, my school doesn't badge students for software, but I know software skills are where I think Adobe's come up with some badging, and I know that for continuing education, Adobe has created, educator badges for learning their systems and showing mastery and stuff. But yeah, I think to Alan's point, I think students can be as competent as anyone in software and get the badge and whatever, but it really is about in graphic design at least about the total thinking process and the thinking system. And just because you know how to operate software and you know how that works, that's not going to guarantee that you're going to be able to come up with some innovative idea. It's not going to guarantee that you can talk to clients. It's not going to guarantee anything. It's going to guarantee something good because you need software skills, but it's not the end all in it. So yeah, but it's an interesting dynamic because I think that it's valuable on some level to have those competencies, but I think it's not where you need to land eventually. So
Interesting stuff, and it reminds me a lot of discussions that I've had with both instructional designers and faculty colleagues about the value of a degree, any degree. It doesn't really matter what the field is. When you're looking at skills and competencies earned, and then what people are supposed to be able to do at the end, and how do you assess if they can do it. I tend to be more of a perfectionist when I look at student work. I think that intimidates some people. I also like to give a lot of feedback, and I think that sometimes is seen as a way that my perfectionism manifests itself. But at the end, I really want to see people graduated. So then it's one of those, is this good enough to be credentialed as X or Y or Z? But there is a huge variation within the field. Sort of reminds me of the joke. I heard about it before I joined the doctoral program. I've heard it since. What do you call somebody who graduates with a B average? A doctor. So, when you're looking at that, then, what do transcripts mean, and what does a degree really mean at this point? And I think badges kind of bring up the same questions for me. All right, so I see.
I like that joke. I'm gonna steal that.
I am not the originator of that joke, although I am failing to have an appropriate citation. So
is that a hat tip I give you then, or a via?
It's probably a via.
Okay.
I would say you would not earn a badge for that. There's no APA citation badge going your way. I was thinking there might be, but nope, just got cut out from the list. So.
Anonymous, date unknown, or no date.
ND.
Perfect.
How would you cite a joke?
Does APA
I'm
have
not even going to dive into that. Apparently, the new MLA guide, if we're going to go down that road, they've tried to future-proof the new guide that just came out like a week or so ago, where it's like they are writing more about conventions instead of like the example sheet of like, if it's an article, this; if it was an online article, this; if it was like an online magazine, this. So it's more about like the kind of style as opposed to like discrete examples.
Aren't all jokes stolen?
Oh, good jokes anyway.
Good talking, guys. I gotta go walk my dog.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for joining us, Alan.
Great talking, and maybe future badge discussions later on. But until then, good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah.
See ya.
Bye.